Skeptic here, and today I just wanted to cover a particular topic which I find that people tend to not really understand about life in general and how society works. And it is tackling this myth of meritocracy, for example. And just follow me here. People tend to think that everything a person does or has achieved in life is only due to their own will or their own intelligence or skills or hard work. And yes, while to a certain extent that is true, it just remains a basic fact that many of the tools which people use to further their accomplishments were not created by them. I'll just give you a quick example. Mark Zuckerberg, he created Facebook, and it is a website, a social media website that is used to communicate with one another all over the world, and it keeps people in touch. You can post photos and etc. etc. Although one could say that he had this genius idea and he deserves all the billions and millions that he has received for this. When you really think about it, is that really true? So, he needed an infrastructure to create this Facebook platform, which is just a domain existing on a distributed network, right? And so the infrastructure for this was laid down hundreds of years ago. And if you even want to get very technical, we could say it was laid down thousands of years ago, because there were a number of events that needed to occur for the infrastructure of the internet to even exist. And to get more specific, we can even say that the research that went into creating the internet and for example, how this was first used for military communication, just all these component parts were not in they were not in existence, and people had to do them. And again, a lot of this research was publicly funded, and so a lot of this research took a society contributing and amassing wealth and pushing it in directions of research in order for the internet to exist in the first place. So, if you could just follow me here, yes, at a certain point, Mark Zuckerberg did need to have the idea of Facebook and put this idea into action. Although the necessary groundwork for him to even be able to do that takes a host of influences. And let's even go deeper. He was born in a family. This family had to raise him from being a child. So even reaching his adulthood was not all him. It was teaching from his parents. It was him being sent to school, getting an education, learning to speak the language, being fortunate enough to go to Harvard University, having his contacts with a lot of, if you guys have seen the movies concerning Mark Zuckerberg, you find that he was in communication with others that helped him really bring his ideas to fruition. And so when we see all these moving parts, you start to understand the codependency of humans on one another, and this idea of a meritocracy starts to dissolve. Yes, at some point someone needs to take an action, and yes, hard work, ethics does come into the picture, but at the same time, none of it could exist without the preceding groundwork being done. And so the reason I'm saying this is because I found a kind of ideology that seems to exist online and in memes and even within society itself, that people only get places by complete hard work, and if you don't do the work, then you don't deserve anything. And an example of this is when we talk about things such as a UBI, which would be a universal basic income for people to live within society. And this idea is a really great idea because it really takes us down to the level to know that we are all connected in some sense. And helping you is like helping myself. And not to get so spiritual here, but we are all reflections of one another. And so why would I want to see myself suffering and do nothing to help? And so, and this also, the reason that I even got into this particular line of thinking and conversation is that I was having a dialogue with someone, I won't mention their name, in the YouTube comments. And this person was complaining about the government giving stimulus checks to everyone in the country. And his reasoning was, this is a free handout, and nobody should have handouts because he has worked so hard to get what he wants. And because he has worked so hard, if he doesn't see other people working just as hard, then he doesn't think they deserve anything. But to that same logic, there are people that work harder than that person. So maybe he doesn't even work hard enough to deserve anything. Maybe what we are paying him in terms of salary in his business place is not warranted because we can find someone that works better, smarter than him. And so I really just need to get this idea out there that until humans start thinking in a more socially aware or empathetic manners, society is in grave danger. Because if you are pushing for individualism and you want everybody to think that it is only by their hard work that they get somewhere, and if they have some ill luck in life, it's not actually ill luck, it's just the consequence of them taking certain actions that led them to that bad place in life, so to speak. And if it's not true, it is not true. Yes, there are factors which the individual takes which ends them up in precarious situations, but it is not a fact that there are those who might not have taken those wrong steps and still ended up in horrible situations. And so ill luck falls upon anybody. And so even just seeing this distribution of ill luck in itself should push society to say, wow, we need to have some sort of baseline through which, just for being a human being, I'm sorry, but just for being a human being, you should have some kind of minimal safety awarded to you, because for hundreds of years, your parents and grandparents fought to create a society in which such efficiency could be achieved. And we have the infrastructure in place, so why not use it to create more good in the world? You know, it's just it brings me back to thinking exactly how I'm not even extending this just to humans, all of life. And this is probably where I'm getting spiritual, but Yes, all of life. We need to work towards a life where all life is appreciated. And only when we have this top down approach, of course, it has to be worked from the bottom up with everyone acting in such manners. But we do need this utopian like idea to want to even achieve in the first place. And if this utopian like idea is of everyone struggling and survival of the fittest and every individual having the potential to actualize their abilities, so to speak, but we don't want it to be in a world where there are quote unquote handouts, then you're just damaging, and you're damaging that picture, you know? Those are thorns in the side of the picture through which we are supposed to be moving towards. And so I can even to an extent say that there are people acting in ill will, people that actually want others to suffer, people that actually want to see others suffer, some because they suffered themselves through their life, and so they just want everyone to be like them, you know? And this projection of the ego is very detrimental to the societal consciousness, you know? We need to have a collective consciousness that pushes us to love one another. Not to sound corny in any way, but love really is the true and ultimate ideal. And this, of course, as my channel mostly talks about MBTI, for those of you who have not uh, who are not familiar with the MBTI and Carl Jung, the reason I'm even saying any of this is because it does play into personality. It plays into personality types, and it plays into different aspects of personality being emphasized in society over others, which are detrimental to society. Having an individual outlook on life, having a very uh, pragmatic, so to speak, extroverted thinking kind of approach to life, and even sometimes introverted thinking could come in here and create some rules which they deem to be fair, but only in relation to their experience and to what they believe efficiency is. And so you could have a logic that says, if I wasn't able to have anything afforded to me, why should others have that thing afforded to them? And therefore, we start to create policies and laws which project that energy into the world. And it is sad. It is really sad. So I'm here saying this because I don't know, many of you might grow up to be politicians, or many of you might grow up to be in places of power, but you really need to know that sometimes you need to dismantle the system before you can build one that works for everybody. And sometimes the system that is currently in place actually has malicious intents, whether we know it or not, you know? And going into politics, we do need to elect leaders that show this kind of collective thinking, people that have ideas such as universal basic income, which someone like Andrew Yang was supporting during his candidacy. It is also ideas that come from people like Bernie Sanders that we need to really move towards, because sometimes we don't understand that politicians, just as much as they are in that just as much as we influence them, they influence us. And so they could carry certain ideologies and project a stronger personality than those of the people that wish to be like that person, but contain within themselves aspects of this politician's personality. And so once he starts to go out there and preach Hard work, that's the only way to make it. Sorry if you're bad. You're gonna end up in jail. You shouldn't succeed because you're late. Like, things like that start to get injected into the general populace, and the general populace starts to believe that, yeah, that actually makes sense. And like repeaters, like, I like to call them automatons sometimes, they go around spewing these things to their friends, their family, and now their family friends are faced with accepting this idea, well, because everyone around seems to be saying it. And then we tend to come into groups where we have people such as Bernie Bros. We have people that seem to be pushing for more social consciousness, and people that seem to be pushing for more individuality. And so you have two opposing sides warring against each other. And you have politicians feeding energy to either side, but with the end goal of nothing really being accomplished. Because in the view of corporations, businesses, conglomerates, they want this bickering to go on between society so that they can just continue to make out with all the cash, you know? And so I would just like to end this by saying, I'd like to end this by saying we need to adopt a social consciousness. In terms of the MBTI, we really need to push in the world more introverted intuition beliefs. Sorry to say, but I'm not just being biased towards my own type, but there is a world in which everything can be cohesive, in a sense of everyone having a certain amount of safety afforded to them. And in this same world, not disparaging the other functions, in the same world, we can have extroverted intuitive possibilities that can be achieved. No one has to be, as people like to talk bad on communism, not everyone has to be checkered into a box and not have individuality. No. All we are saying is that there should be some basic human rights. And those human rights, as it has evolved over time, is coming to a time where food, a place to live, education, just these three things. Healthcare, I'll add one more. Healthcare, 4 things. These 4 things a society can provide. It really can do it. And the level of sophistication and technology that we now have, and the productivity that we know we are able to accomplish, this can be done. And so we need to make strides in this direction, and we need to be wary of powerful political leaders, businessmen, that are against these interests, that want to take everything for themselves. Because these people really do exist. It's not a fantasy. They are there. And so I'll leave off the video here. Thank you all for listening, and leave any comments below on what you might think, or if you don't agree with me, that's okay too. But that will be it for now. I will be back in future videos to continue talking about personality types, but I will probably start to diverge in terms of topics to lean more into things such as social wellness, spirituality as well, because these things are needed. These things need to be talked about. And even though MBTI is fun to talk about the mechanics and how it works and all that stuff, I would also like to push a pro-social agenda. So yes, I am here with an agenda, and everyone has one. So We can't pretend to not. But I'll see you guys next time. The Irrational Skeptic signing off.